Make this live CD tonight. What we gonna do?
Yeah. Let me see who's in the house. Yeah, I was a little late today. Sorry about that. I was just testing out some stuff. But we in the house. Yo, I just want to play this little track by Backyard Band. I finally figured out how to get the audio running up in here. Yeah. It's getting off late, a little late this morning, but it's still morning time on the East Coast. Washington, D.C., it would be 7:25 a.m. East Coast Standard Time for the U.S. Just listening to a little Backyard Band. And I wanted to take a little tour of D.C. today, virtually, over the net, because why not? A lot has been going on in the crazy world of the unconscious community, but I could wait for another update. But for the moment, I decided it would be a good way for me to test the system, because while I've been going along, I'm learning every day new things. That's been part of the plan, actually. You got to be up to learn new stuff every day, so you don't fall for the same old tricks. And as you can see, yesterday I did, because I did the audio wrong. I didn't even know you could do the audio in this way. So I'm trying it now. Yeah. So let me see here. I'm gonna let this track play for a second and see who comes in the house. Called go-go music. It's the local music of Washingtonians. It's 50 years old now. Holding it down by a lot of bands like Chuck Brown, Air Raid, EU, Experience Unlimited, Rare Essence, Petworth Boys. Who else? Shady Groove. Northeast Groovers. That's the band from my era growing up in Northeast. Yeah, yeah. That Junkyard Band. A lot of people know Junkyard Band from the Run DMC movie. I forget which one it was in. Tougher Than Leather, I think. And people do know Trouble Funk. Trouble Funk is an old go-go band that went worldwide. So we're gonna take a little tour and see what we can come up with, not just in go-go, but just DC culture in general. Since I know a lot about DC, I got an upcoming documentary that I've been working on for 2 years that I've been taking my time with. You probably see the trailer on the front page of my YouTube page right here, the one you on, and that's just a little glimpse. Uh, I did like over, I don't even want to say it. I'll put it to you this way: over two dozen interviews from different people who were born and raised in Washington D.C. Who added to the culture, different age groups, um, yeah, different backgrounds, professional and otherwise. So, so yeah, let me just take care of one thing, and I'm gonna get right with it. Let me see here. Yep, this group is called Backyard Band, and as you can hear, go-go music. It's all percussion. It's heavy percussion. Um, you know, that's one of the unique elements about go-go is heavy percussion. And as you find out more about DC, you will find out that a lot of the vibe of the city has some interesting elements that you could say come straight out of Africa, right? And DC is one of the cities that made sure the Congo remained in our culture. All right, let's get to it. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I think I missed a couple people early. Donnie was in here in the chat early. Sorry about that. The internet was crazy over here. We had like a monsoon of rain in Copenhagen at the top of the morning, and yeah, the internet blacked out at some point, totally blacked out, and it was shaky for about an hour or two. So yeah, I just used that time to try to take care of a few other things. And I've been working through this StreamYard. I figured out wow, how to play music better than I was doing it yesterday. So now I figured out StreamYard's way of doing things. I was first researching OBS, and OBS is nice for what it does. I love OBS; it's great. But so I learned a lot of things on OBS, especially like the music. But now it took me a second to go through StreamYard, so I'm liking StreamYard. And as you can see, one of the things that's new outside of the music in the background is this little thing at the bottom of the screen. Now, what's unique about this is that, and don't worry about it. People that are here, I don't live off of cash apps, and I don't beg for cash apps, and I don't do this for cash apps. But I'm putting it up there because from time to time, you might want to actually support something, right? So If you do want to do that, here's the way you could do it. You could use PayPal or you could use Cash App. Cash App, I have it up there for my man, my homie Grizz. And he goes by the name of EXO. And you can actually hit him off. He was up here talking about you know, the time he spent in prison. 20 something years in prison in the feds and in the state. And he was examining Polite's paperwork for us, for our benefit. So, Storm, I did get that PayPal, and I'm assuming it's supposed to go over to him. And I'm going to make sure I do that. I appreciate you very much for that. And I'm sure he will too. It will encourage him to come out and speak some more. Now, what I would say is the other day, there was somebody in the chat, and he left some comment like to one of my man EXO's statements to like, we all know that. I'm gonna be straight up with you. I never been to prison. I never been to the feds. I never been to state prison because DC don't have a state prison. All our homies go to the feds for any type of crime, right? Any type of felony or up, you going to the feds. You going state nationwide. So they break us up from our families and send us everywhere. That's probably why we go so hard, are known for going so hard in the prison system, right? Now, even though I grew up in a rough part of town, in a part of town that is Northeast DC, which you have to learn the customs of the people if you want to survive. It is part of our culture, the way that we are. And even though I grew up there, even though I know plenty of cats that's been to the pen from juvie and on up, even though I've witnessed and partaken in all types of things. I mean, you have to watch people get shot. You have to watch people get murdered. You have to see people, degrade themselves, become addicts. You have to watch people with big mouths get dealt with too. You learn a lot about how to survive in Northeast Washington, D.C. And so that comment, yeah, we all know that. Well, if I had this in my background, I would still not say what you that I would know what the pen is like. I don't know what the pen is like, nor do I care to know from firsthand experience. And why do I have to when I can always ask somebody that has that firsthand experience? It's much easier, much more logical and rational to ask those that have done that time. And so that's what EXO was here to do. So if you want to support him, his Cash App is up there, Rosterman X. And mine is VB Media. Yeah, as you can see. So these are some of the new functions that I've been implementing, slowly as I learn. StreamYard. So let's get started, folks. Who's in the chat? Nobody's in the chat? Also, if anybody want to join me up on the panel, you're welcome to. I'm only going to be here for maybe an hour or two today, just to go through some little funny stuff about DC. Interesting facts. I've done a lot of research on DC, so I thought I would share a little bit. The Doc Hometown DC is going to be expanding on a long, great periods of Washington DC history. But I want to share a little bit of it with you all that I know of. So let me get started. Let me see here. Let me turn this music down also a little bit. Put this up here on the screen. Yeah. Let me see something. Can you all see this? Right. You can see it. Now let me turn this down. It's a nice feature, but I'm going to turn it down. Yeah, I hope everybody's having a good morning. Washington, D.C. history. Well, the history of Black folk in Washington, D.C., it starts a long time ago, just like it has everywhere in the country, in the United States, right? But for those that don't know, one of the neighborhoods that the African American population, or the neighborhood, the African American population in DC, the Black population started was in Georgetown. And Georgetown, it thrived for some time. You had people that did all types of work, um, physical labor at the harbors. I don't know how many of you know this, but Georgetown has a harbor. It has a canal where goods used to be shipped up and down the canal, and it parallels the Potomac River, right, which is one of the borders of D.C. That river. So let me see here. I'm just going to go through this and then go through a few more articles. But it says here, this is actually one of the old people sitting on the stoop, 32nd Street in Georgetown, right? In 1916. Sorry about that. At the turn of the century. Just for you to take a look at that. And I do believe these people are associated with the oldest church also in DC. But let me take a read. Step out of your home or walk a block from your office here in Georgetown, the oldest neighborhood in Washington, D.C., and you are sure to pass a spot that contains history, quite likely African American history. To the surprise of some, Georgetown can tell the story of early and contemporary America from a Black perspective. In 2019, we marked the 400th anniversary of enslaved Africans arriving in the British American colonies at Point Comfort, Virginia. Disembarking in 1619 were not anything but 20 and odd Negroes, according to John Rolfe, widower of Pocahontas. The legacy of slavery continues to inform the American experience, black and white, particularly on the East Coast, where the United States began. Of the many stories to tell, we shall tell a local one. Washington, D.C., says Marcia Chantelaine, Georgetown University Associate Professor of History, is a place with black history that was shown great beauty and inequity. It is a sober reminder, a celebration too, she added, of achievement and strengths. Knowing and understanding history, says the author of Southside Girls, growing up in the Great Migration. Americans have a chance to demonstrate what possible constructing a well-rounded account. Black History Month is a time to be reflective. Let's go down here a little bit. University confronts slavery ties. The same Jesuit university at 37th and O Street, the oldest Catholic institution of higher learning in the U.S. That would be Georgetown University, I believe. Um, Only fully confronted its ties to slavery 3 years ago. It seems to me that the story of Georgetown and slavery is a microcosm of the whole history of slavery, said history professor Adam Rothman, a member of the Georgetown University Working Group on Slavery, Memory, and Reconciliation in 2016, regarding the university's connection with the Jesuits of 1838 sale of 272 slaves. Since then, the university has apologized for arranging the sale of slaves from D.C. and Maryland Farm to help pay off debts that endangered the survival of Georgetown College. And it has renamed two main campus buildings for Isaac Hawkins, the first slave listed on the sale document, and for Anne Marie Becraft, who founded a school nearby for Black girls and later became one of the America's first Black nuns. Yeah. DC, the history of DC, it started it's been a city, there's been towns there, Black towns, Black neighborhoods in DC since before the turn of the century. Now, I don't have all my files out, but I'm gonna let me see something here. Wait a second. I know what I'm gonna do. Sorry about that. I'm gonna move up here. Give me 2 seconds here. Yes. I just want to open up one of my drives. Boop, 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 boop. Mm-hmm. Let me see. Mm-hmm. Right. All right. So here we go. Let's see if we can open this up. Give me 2 seconds. Bup, 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 bup. Now, I don't know how many of you can see this, but Washington, D.C., as far as the black community in D.C., there's statistical data from the 1850s to the 1800s that's been published. That's pretty interesting in this book that I found. And so I just wanted to review that pretty quickly. Let me see here. Let me go back to it, see if I can find some numbers. The demographics are even separated into age, sex, color, occupation, age of spouse. Yeah. So, but what's interesting is here. Let me check and see who can see this. Let me blow it up a little bit more. Where's the right? Blow it up a little bit more. I hope you all can see this pretty clearly. Maybe I should open it up a little more than this. Let me do that. A little more. I think that's better now. I think you all can see this now. Yeah, okay. So let's start here. This is from 1850, 1860, 1870, 1880. So 1850 to 1880. Statistical profile of the black family in Washington, D.C. Total population in 1850 is 52,000 people. The total that are black is 14,000. Percentage, 26%, right, of the total population was black, 27%. Free blacks, 11,000. In 1850, there's 11,000 free blacks in Washington, D.C. 79% are free. 2,940 are slaves in 1850, the same time period. That's 21% of the black population. 1860, 75,000. So the total population in DC has risen overall, but the black population stays the same, 14,000. The percentage is now 18% of the overall population. How many free blacks? 11,622. So roughly 500 and something odd black people got their freedom in that time period in 10 years. That makes the free population now 80 of blacks 84%. And the slave population has gone down to 2,380, being 16% of the population. What's even more interesting is this. Well, we could review this. 1800, there's no more slavery there, but 1880, but there's 60,000 black people living in Washington, D.C., with an overall population of 178,000. That's 33% of the population. When I grew up in D.C., blacks were like 70% of the population, but that's another story. And as you can see here, the statistics are from the U.S. Department of Commerce, Bureau of Census Historical Statistics Series. All right. Now, proportion of black male and black female headed households in Washington, D.C., 1850 to 1880. Total households, 77 in 1850. Male, 53. 68% household led by males, right? 24% led by females. That's 31%. That's interesting. Um, Pretty much stays the same in 1860, 10 years later, but there's a rise now in female households. There's an overall number that's risen, but the percentage stays the same, 30 roughly, right? 1870, excuse me, uh, female head of households drops, and the percentage of male households, led households, rises slightly. Yeah, in the same in 1880, there's a fall again for female headed households and a rise in male headed households. That's interesting. It seems to coincide with slavery ending, ironically enough. Um, yeah, and anyway, I'll read this part. According to the table two, which is this one right here, the smallest percentage of male headed households in Washington occurred in 1850, 69%, and in 1860, 70%. The higher proportion of female headed families in 1850 and 1860 suggests a higher degree of matriarchy in the Washington's free black population during slavery. A similar situation existed in other southern cities during the same period. The proportion of male headed families seems small for Washington since 79% of the black population there was free rather than slave in 1850. In Louisville, Kentucky, for example, where 70% of the city's black population was still enslaved in 1860, 61% of the free black families were listed as male headed in the contrast. Washington's free black population numbered 83% and a total black population in 1860. So these are some interesting facts about DC to just kick it off. What's up, Donnie? Okay, you back? Yeah, I saw you on earlier, brother. Yeah, let me see. I'm just going through some early statistics, some early DC facts for people that a lot of people don't know, brother. And this data right here, is pretty remarkable in the sense that it shows you the extent of the black black population of DC from the 1850s. I mean, they have that data and they spit it out here. So it's pretty interesting. By the way, there's more data. I'm not going to go over all of it, but there's more data, and it talks about how many own homes versus how many don't. What type of ownership. But we can get into that at another point. Let me see here. Now let me take this back. Take this off the screen for a second. Stop the screen sharing. And let me go back to screen share. Now, this is the turn of the centuries. You can see right here is 1916. So but so many years right after the data we just looked at. 1880 was the last data we looked at. And this is 1916. So this is 36 years later, right? And this is what it looked like. 36 years later, this is in Georgetown, right? If you can follow. Yeah, let's continue. Let me see here. Right. but this is going back earlier. And this is the Georgetown Harbor, if I'm correct. And this is what a lot of black men, if you know, were doing at that time. Not all, as you can see, 1619, right? I believe that's what period this is. That from this period? No, let's check it out. Let me just double check. Um, let me just double check here. Okay. Yeah, but this is an example. Let me see. I'm not sure where this. Let me see. Save images. Let me just double check and see if it says. No, it doesn't. It doesn't say what period that picture is from. But that is the Georgetown Harbor. It's probably the turn, 1800s, something like that. Uh, but it could be before that. But the Georgetown Harbor, or after that, the Georgetown Harbor was a big center of commerce. And so when the ships came in off the Potomac, a lot of blacks worked on the Potomac, and that was the easy job you could get. And Georgetown Canal, that was a neighborhood. So that's kind of like an inlet further in to service communities there. And so, yeah, so that's part of the history of DC. Now, let me go back. Let me go into something else that I found here that's pretty interesting. Boom. If I could find it, I'm going to play it for you. Let me see. History. Is it here? Is it here? Right. I believe this is it. Now, let me pause this. I hope I don't get a strike, but the sister was so beautiful. I have to share this with you all, actually, because she does such a great job presenting this. Let me see. And it's so relevant. Georgetown is so relevant to the black community. So this is why I'm going to show this. Okay. It's literally really the first black neighborhood.
Hello, I'm Valerie Babb. I want to tell you a story about a community that once lived here in Georgetown. That Georgetown looked nothing like the Georgetown we see today. Not as fancy or expensive, not as affluent, and perhaps most interestingly, not as white. In fact, the Georgetown that we will remember in this program was one of the most important Black communities in the city. That community was marked by its pride and self-esteem, its love, and its ability to make everyone who lived here feel part of a very special place. This is Black Georgetown Remembered.
My grandmother tells me that she was about 4 years old at the end of slavery, and she came from Rockville.
My grandfather was a slave in Montgomery County, and he came to Georgetown about 1865.
A lot of people think slavery is such a long time ago, but my great grandmother, who died at the age of 99, died in Washington, D.C., and she was born on a slave plantation. So imagine you growing up with a person, a household member, person of your family that was born on a slave plantation. That's me. And I'm sure that's a lot of you who have tightly knitted families, that remember these things and share those stories.
My grandfather was a native Virginian from Amosville, Virginia, in Rappahannock County. The story is he left home as a young man with 25 cents in his pocket, somehow got to Washington and put himself through school, became a physician.
The Georgetown community has a long and rich history, and the achievements of its Black residents are a central part of that history. Long before the Civil War, this once thriving commercial center on the Potomac River was home to a large, self-reliant, free Black community.
Exactly, Donnie. It's not a long time ago. For some reason, it almost seems like it's taught like it's a long time ago, but it's not.
even though slavery also flourished along Georgetown's streets and wharves. Hundreds of Black men and women settled in Georgetown, raised families, and established businesses, schools, and churches. Mount Zion United Methodist Church on 29th Street is the oldest Black congregation in the District of Columbia.
Good morning, Andrea.
The first U.S. Census in 1790 listed 34 free Blacks as heads of families in Georgetown. By 1810, over a third of the city's population was Black, most of them slaves. This proud, vibrant community was also made up of free Blacks like Libby Adams, William Fields, Millie Gant, and Joseph Moore, who first earned his freedom and then opened a market. Alfred Lee, owner of a prosperous feed store at 29th and M Streets, was one of the richest Blacks in the city. When he died in 1868, he left an estate of over $100,000. After the Civil War, many more Blacks settled in Georgetown.
Now, you see, that's before the Civil War. That's before the Civil War. So there's free Blacks operating in Georgetown, Washington, D.C. before the Civil War. And that's also what that data kind of alludes to as well, that I was just reviewing. But let's continue.
Between 1860 and the 1880s, the Black population jumped from 1,900 to nearly 5,000. But by the turn of the century, Georgetown was in economic decline. The village slipped into a quaint lethargy in the shadow of Washington. Georgetown became a community of sharp economic contrasts: rich, middle class, and very poor. But the Black community maintained its historic energy and independence. Led by men like Alfred Pope and others, it boasted an impressive array of doctors, musicians, teachers, craftsmen, and day workers who kept their pride despite the indignities of racial segregation. The strength of the Black community was in the diversity of its people, churches, and businesses. This wonderful mix of urban life helped Georgetown sustain one of the most remarkable Black communities in the history of the nation's capital.
You know, that's one of the reasons why I don't talk down about people's religion or the religion that they practice, because the reality of it is that, you know, outside of what people like to debate often is the religious aspect of their religion or their church or their, you know, whatever they do. Then there's the local organizational structure of what those institutions did, you know, and you being a member, you decide what your institution does. And a lot of the Black churches, they did more than just read the Bible. You know, they were invested in their communities. So it's worth noting, taking note of.
Just about every occupation covered was represented by a Black man. We had coal yards, we had delicatessens, we had in professional groups, we had undertakers, we had pharmacists.
Now, what's important to note is that this is the first Black community in Washington, D.C. Today, this is extremely, you have to be very, very wealthy to get anywhere close to owning real estate in this area. This is literally where the rich folk live. The Black people now, in contrast, especially due to the fact of the most recent gentrification phase, it's really east of the river now. It's east of the Anacostia. And if I don't know, let me pull up a map here just so we can review this for you guys. Just so you know, that's on the exact opposite side of the city. And that could easily be shown by a map. Let's see here. Map, Washington, D.C. map. Boom. Just so you can take a look at it. Is this the map or what? Yeah. I'll pull this up here for you so you can have a little look at it. Let's see here. Boom. Put the screen up again. We can go right back to that in a second. It's just worth taking a look at this. You know, the part of the city that's being discussed right now, Georgetown, I don't know if you can see this. Close this crap down too. Georgetown. This is Georgetown right here. You see where my mouse is? Georgetown. That's all the way over here. This is the first Black town in DC, right? Today, most of the black people are relegated to this area here, east of the river. They call it east of the river. And where I grew up was Capitol Hill, which is here, this area, right? Around here somewhere. What the heck is, where's the Washington Monument? Hill East, right? The hill. There we go. I grew up in this area, here and here. I grew up on both sides of the Anacostia, right? But today, most of the black community has been relegated really to the eastern side of the city, and yeah, that's gentrification for you. But also when I was growing up, the black community was literally like all uptown, all up here, everywhere. It wasn't in Georgetown anymore. And it was up here. Yeah. It was just Georgetown that the black people really weren't. This area became all white. But the rest of the city was black when I was growing up. The rest of it, but today it's over here, all this east side, east of the Anacostia. This is the Anacostia River right here. But this is DC, as you can see, this square is what DC is, today. In the old days, it was out here as well. So there's some historical sites like the George Washington Masonic Temple. They're out here now, but that's part of Virginia today. So just so you know. So let me go back to the sister. Yeah, let's see here. Boom, boom, boom.
We had doctors, so that there was just a mixture on all levels, professional, federal, and otherwise.
For one thing, we had a lot of entrepreneurs here. People were engaged in so many different kinds of businesses. Those who had horse and wagons were doing moving. They were going downtown in drayage, bringing the materials back and getting salvage out of that with the cardboard, the newspaper, the wood, and also some would actually go around and buy up rags and newspaper. Then you had others who engaged in coal and ice and cut wood. Now we had a very unusual man who was blind. They called him Blind John Ransom, who had a place at the corner of 27th and O Street. And he had an ice axe, which is somewhat like a hatchet. And he could stretch his hands on the ice from one corner to another and then mark it and cut it and come very near giving you 25 pounds of ice.
And my grandfather was affectionately known as the mayor of Georgetown, Charles Turner, because he had helped so many people to get jobs.
Well, my dad was just my dad. It never dawned on me that he was a doctor until, I guess I must have been about 6. I can remember people coming to the door with sick children, or even they were sick. Sometimes they were cut. And no matter what time of day, even though Dad had regular office hours, they still came anytime during the day. I guess every day somebody was coming in emergency for one thing or the other. And he would treat them. No complaint.
One thing that we had a billy goat. And I think the Jacksons, they had goats. I think they had 2 goats. But we had a wagon with ours. And my dad used to use it to go get ice and anything that we needed. In fact, at Thanksgiving and Christmas, my mother was a pretty good cook, and she would cook turkeys, and we would deliver them in the wagon.
And of course, then you had your tailors. You had some tailors that were really bushelmen. They could make a suit to fit a custom suit.
this is so interesting because where would you go to school to learn how to be a tailor? You know, where would you go to school to learn how to be an ice cutter? Where would you go to school at this time to learn any of these things, any of these trades that these people are mastering and yeah, providing services to the community? Where do you learn this from? You know, and it's so amazing to see that in this time period. This is even before the turn of the century, I believe. But this is before the turn of, this is 1900s. This is like, you know, this is close. This is somewhere around there. I mean, you know, yeah, this is, yeah, pass it down, Donnie, pass it down. You know, I mean, and they're here talking about it, you know, and it's been passed down, you know, or that, yeah, passed down, or they learned it from someone else who did it. I mean, yeah, you know, but this is what was going on in that town. People provided services, people had learned skills, and it it functioned. I don't even know if they had a school. You know, it's just remarkable.
Of course, then you had the others who were just cleaners and pressers. You had your plasterers, your bricklayers, and of course, we also had bootleggers, we had number writers, and we had number runners.
The Warren boys were noted bootleggers and numbers. Now, the unique thing about the Warren boys, they were the only one who could afford the Cadillac car, and it was a touring type car. They had the curtains up there. And I was small. I remember many a day the Warren boys would be going up and down I Street, 27th Street, being.
Hey, Storm, I got that. I got that from you. I'm gonna send it over to X.
Chased by the police.
But the funny thing, neither one could do over 35 miles an hour. And the bootlegs were chasing. They had one guy up there that would get on the front end of the police Model T. When they got close enough, he'd take a leap and leap off on the back of the bootleg's car. That's the truth.
And that was a common occurrence. It reminded the days of Al Capone in Chicago. But the Warren boys was Al Capone of the Bottom and Georgetown area.
Now you see the crime in DC in the Black community, it emerges in segregation. It emerges on the cusp of slavery ending, but it's segregation. This is a segregated part of town, and crime was literally a way that, you know, people could find a way to make some money, extra money, liquor and bootlegging, playing the numbers and making liquor, right? Today, playing the numbers and making liquor is legal, and drinking liquor is legal. Today it is. So in cities like DC, it's a federal city. You know, the element of Black people and crime, it goes back to the turn of the century and before. It goes back to the 1800s. You see, and so it is a little difficult to just expect people to take that curve when the prejudice that they face hasn't really ended, you know. But I'll stop there.
Though terribly exciting, these times were hardly representative of life in Georgetown. There, the Black community would be overwhelmingly marked by two dominant traits: hard work and sacrifice.
Everybody struggled and worked hard to make a living.
That is right. And my father, of course, he worked for the district government, but he drove teams, and that's $1 a day, $1.50, $2, I guess, something like that. And things were up. And then the wives would help the husbands with the children and all. Most of the wives stayed home and took in laundry and to make ends meet and reared the children.
That was the thing that kept us together. And our parents saw that we had food when they didn't have it.
We had beautiful parents, mother and father. My mother done domestic work, washing and ironing in the home, and my father was a porter in a store. And that living took care of us. How, I will never know. My mother was able to give 2 of us piano lessons.
I know my parents worked very hard for me. My father worked not only in the government, but in the evenings, part-time, bartending and doing those kinds of things so that my sister and I could go to school and go on to college.
We never discussed whether we wanted to go to school. That was it. They had a rule. We work for you, you go to school for us.
We were always told that education was your way of accomplishing more than your parents did.
My 2 older sisters, they went as far as the 4th and 5th grades. Something like that. And then they stopped school and went to work to help the family. So my younger sister and I could go to high school. It was through their aid and help it made the family progress as well as it did.
Yeah, thank you, Napa. No, what I was going to say was these people. I'm so sorry. These people. Have you once thought in your head that they were stopped by their religion? Did you have that thought yet? Like, because you hear all the time people arguing and saying, "What stop us is it's the white man's religion. It's the religion that we have this religion and that religion." But when you're listening to these people, they had so much less than us. And do you hear them? Did it once pop in your mind that religion stopped them? That their religion was their problem? And I would say it's because they're much more than their religion. They're way more than their religion. It wouldn't matter what religion they had because they had a structure, a family structure in place. It wouldn't even occur in your mind to even ask, "Oh, well, what's your religion?" Because they have something on display that's so much greater than just your religion. They had structure.
And I love them down to the grave. Both of them are gone on now. They've passed. But it was through them we got high school education.
Georgetowners worked hard to make life better for themselves and their families. But despite their best efforts, for many, the struggle was rough, especially during the hard times.
So I remember to heat our houses, we should go down to the Washington Flour Company on K Street, and we'd take the corn cobs, and this would be heat for the house. Or we'd catch the coal trains coming through here, bringing coke for the old gas house down on Virginia Avenue, where Watergate is now. Oh, well, when the coke wasn't on the ground, we'd jump up on the train and knock some off. Oh, yes.
And they would, when they would dump the ashes, then.
And that's what a lot of us do. You know, that's what I call mischievousness. Oh my goodness. Oh my
the people would pick the cinders from them. And after picking the cinders from them, then they would sell them for 35 cents a bushel and also take some home to keep their own homes warm.
As a kid, for the make money, I always made money, and I had.
Oh, it would be safe to say that, Dottie. That was my point. I mean, I'm not saying any religion, you know, that you should flock to Christianity or not or anything like that. But I'm saying these people are so well put together, it would never even cross your mind to wonder what their religion is, because would it matter? They're on full display of their skill and knowledge here. I mean, these are some people that's moving, you know. It's like I could almost care less what their religion was, but it's ironic that they were.
Keep it and hide it, because other than that, starve. And I had a wagon, and we'd go down there, and you could catch a truck that's getting ready to dump, and you could say, "This is mine," and nobody would bother you. That whole power.
What I'm trying to say is the way the House of Consciousness discusses this shit, they be rambling on about religion and what was we here? Are we Moors or are we Africans? Or are we Christians or are we Muslims? Or are we? It's like, man, get the hell out of here. I tell you what, these people definitely were. These were well-functioning people.
I was yours. Well,
and they were living in what? Segregation.
Soon learned that it was better to catch the trucks that had come from families that burned hard coal, because their cinders were more firm, and there was a lot of coal in there that actually wasn't burned. And I could pick them and got home, wash them off, and it was almost as good as a bushel of coal. And I kept about 7, 8 bags of that in the basement and sell them, you know.
Throughout its history, Black Georgetown would be a community in the fullest sense of that word. Though never wealthy, the community remained strong enough and willing enough to help each other, to care for each other.
I imagine everyone was poor, but you didn't feel that you were poor because everyone was in the same boat, you know?
They didn't have no gator shoes on. It wasn't riding in no Benzes and Land Rovers. They wasn't in, you know, they wasn't rolling like Polite now. Polite's complaining about them, you know. They complaining about these folks here. You see what I mean? But these folks here are not complaining. That's the interesting part. And you see how much dignity and pride they had in each other? Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness.
Nobody knew it. Everybody was poor, but nobody knew it because everybody helped everybody. If you had someone living next door to you that wanted something and you had something, you gave them something.
Guess what? Have you heard the N-word yet? Anybody use the N-word yet? Anybody use the N-word yet? That's amazing. I haven't heard it one time. I haven't heard it one time. And these people grew up being called that. I haven't heard it one time. So what's these youngins' excuse? What's Sarnetta's excuse?
When you go to the store, if the grocer knew you, you might buy just a little of it, but he'd give you a lot of it. You pay for a little and he'd give you a lot.
And it seemed as though after my father passed, everyone just seemed to just take me under their wing. Everybody called me Little Millicent, even the teachers and whatnot.
I remember when my mother was sick, she was sick sometime, and the different friends of hers and the organizations used to appoint people to sit up with you at night when you were very sick.
When my mother died, my father was very young. My mother died when I was 14. And my mother died at 32. She was very young.
Oh, yeah. And if they You absolutely right about that. They wasn't sitting around debating about it. They knew what could be done and should be done. It was like second nature, you know. They wasn't sitting around talking about it.
And he had 3 daughters. I have 2 sisters, and I'm the oldest of the 2. And he was sort of at a loss as to how to take care of us after she passed. So we had 20 mothers. Everybody on the block was our mother after that.
Everybody here had been here for a couple of generations. There were no strangers. That's something I should say.
Everybody that had been here in Georgetown at that time had been there for a couple of generations. A couple of generations. You see? I mean, yeah.
There were no strangers in Georgetown among the black community. You knew not only which barbershop a person went to, you knew who their barber was. You wanted to tease somebody, you knew everybody's mother's name. It was remarkable.
And during the hot weather, people used to take their blankets out and stay all night. Some even had assigned themselves spots, as they used to say, that's my apartment. And this is really what they would do. And nobody feared being attacked or their houses broken into or anything like that, because everybody knew everybody.
Everybody corrected you if you were wrong. There was no such thing as doing something and your mother not finding.
House of Consciousness. Do we hear anybody correcting anybody up that place? I would say they've capitulated. They've capitulated. All them cats, they have totally capitulated. Instead, they doing the opposite. What did Smash Rockwell say? Oh no, what did Chris Harris say? It's not my business. It's not my business. It's not my business. Shaka. You may as well turn it into, it's not my business, master. I mean, serious. What did Smash Rockwell say? You mixing me up in pedophilia. You mixing me up in it. What do you think these people would do if there was a pedophile running around? You think that somebody raping a 30-year-old man, raping a little girl, 14-year-old girl? What you think they would do? Say it's not their business? Say stop mixing me up in it? You think that's what they would say? I don't think so.
Finding it out. And you were punished at home as well as by the person who saw you do it. And I think that makes a difference in children growing up and having respect.
Well, it was a strong community. I think the relationship between the people that lived there was very, very strong. We all had a lot of respect for one another, and I think that made, I guess, better men, better women out of some of the people that came out of Georgetown.
And it was especially important in those days to maintain one's self-respect, for Washington, D.C. was a segregated city.
When I was going to high school, they had segregated schools, okay? Western was white. Dunbar, Armstrong, and Cardozo were.
This is my father's generation, you know. Just one generation ago, DC was segregated. So he don't know what it's like to grow up in a city like I grew up in. He knows what it's like to grow up in the segregated part.
The only black schools with Dunbar was academic, Cardozo was clerical, and Armstrong was if you were more in a trade. Then they had Phelps, which was a vocational for the guys, and Martha Washington, which was a vocational for the girls. And those were the only high schools we had.
Like we'd go to a baseball game. It was 25 cents to sit in the bleachers up at Griffith Stadium. So why would you pay 10 cents to ride up there on the streetcar when that 10 cent represented a hot dog and a Coca-Cola? So it's better to turn around and run. You run up there to save that dime. But sometimes if you were running through the street, the policeman would pull you over and say, boy, what you steal? And so he'd pull you over, and you just say, I'm going to the ball game. He says, you sure you didn't steal nothing? Yes, sir, I'm sorry. I haven't stolen anything. And then you turn around and go. But whenever the policeman saw you running, they always thought, or they wanted to assume that you had stolen something, because the policemen were brutal around here then. They would lock you up for anything.
There was a 10-cent store, Woolworth, Kresge, one of the two.
Well, this is the generation my pops, you know, this could be my pops talking, essentially, you know. And I I was lucky, you know, to be very close to my pops. And so I heard stories like this from my uncles and my pops about DC, growing up in DC. And even you know, because they're a span, my pops and their my aunts, and they're a span of time. They're not all the same age, you know. Some are older, some are younger. My pops was the youngest one, or the second to youngest. So all his brothers and sisters were older than him, right? Except for one, ironically, one. Yeah. And yeah. I'm sorry, you got so many brothers and sisters. I get confused sometimes. But you grew up hearing these stories. That's their generation, my parents' generation, right? But, and this is also what they're talking about, is Black Georgetown, the first Black community. That spread out, you know, that community spread out because it declined, but then it changed. And so Black people migrated from the South even more. So DC ended up having like 70% Black population at one time when I was growing up in the 60s. That's a different time, 70s, I'm sorry. It goes from smaller population to a large population of Black people, the 70s, you know? And of course, you got the riots. I don't want to take y'all through all of that, but, you know, we can review that. But today, in my generation, just from my pop's generation to my generation, the generation I grew up in, the generation I grew up in, this is the generation I grew up in. And it's a different kind of, I pray they don't strike my ass. I really hope they don't strike me. But screw it, we're gonna find out. Yeah, this is the generation I grew up in. You know, it's a little bit different than segregation. It's after segregation, not, you know, it's what, a couple of decades after segregation, you could say. Not much time after segregation ended, you see? And I'm already, there's just, yeah, anyway.
My bitch is having my baby now and I'm looking for the pay. I'm dreaming that I'm back in slavery days. Instead of picking cotton in 97, I'm sneaking yay.
Yeah, this is the, you know, part of this is up in the DC jail. I grew up on the east side of Capitol Hill and Capitol Hill East of Anacostia. But as a young man in my teenagers, it was east side of Capitol Hill. And that's where the DC jail is located, right?
I'm gonna go back out there. I'm gonna kill again if I have to. I'm gonna do what I can do to survive.
Lloyd Bright, 5-0-9. Lloyd Bright,
almost like a factory. You know, the shifts are changing. Every day the buses roll in, the buses roll out. If you're here 8 hours from now, 7 o'clock tonight, approximately, you'll see buses rolling back in, new commitments. I mean, you say to yourself, when does this process, it's never going to stop. It's a revolving door.
You know, in my generation, 50% of the black men, young black men, were high school dropouts, and it's because, you know, drug epidemic, jobs, not a lot of jobs, economic issues, and the drug epidemic took over. You know.
We're gonna take your fingerprint, your face sheet. I'm gonna run you on up. We're gonna strip you butt naked. We're gonna check all your body cavities. We're gonna give you a shower. We're gonna give you a goodie bag. We're gonna give you a jumpsuit. We're gonna give you a clean sheet and a towel. And you're at home with me, son. Do you understand me?
And I actually remember being locked up at DC jail. Oh, just actually over some petty shit. Not even really that bad, I would say. Not really that bad, but they didn't like me. And so for some reason, they didn't want me to make a phone call. And so that means I couldn't make my bail, right? They wouldn't let me make my bail. They wouldn't give me the phone call. So I actually had to go up in this piece for like a week, something that $50 would have resolved. And it's just like what he say. They strip you naked. You do all this stuff. They're gonna. It's just, you know. I mean, that's how it is.
You're home with me now.
184.
How I'm supposed to go to court with these boxes, though? Look at the boxes, man. How I'm supposed to go to court like this? Look, you can't go to court like this, man. Look at this, man.
When you walk into my cell block, son, you mind your business. You're gonna be locked up in here with people that you read about in the paper or heard on the news yesterday. You don't tell nobody your business. Do you understand me, Dion? A correction officer like me would be around you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You didn't come in here with a murder beef, did you? Don't leave here with one. When you walk in here, you're in here for one reason and one reason only. We're gonna put you through the system, son. If you didn't do it, you're gonna go home. If you did it, we're gonna put a number on you. We're gonna put you away.
9, 5, 8. Turn it all the way over.
There's a need to understand this population, and I can't sit behind this desk day to day and try to maintain this population. You got to go out, and as you always hear me say, you got to walk this institution. You have to keep hands on the pulse of this institution at all times. High-profile crimes that are in the media last night, they come through my door 7 hours later. What's the count? What's the count? All right, I'm going from the top right.
Donnie, I remember being up in here, man, and I was just waiting for my bail, waiting for one phone call. They made me wait 1 week. And finally, one of the correction officers allowed me to make a phone call from the gate, right, where they have. And yeah, man. And so it took me like a day for things to get processed. But that last day, I remember somebody asking me, they knew I was about to go out. They know this stuff. They know everything. You know, they know everything. They knew I was about to get out, right? I mean, because I told everybody, I was like, I'm just waiting for my bail and I'm out of here. And of course, they wanted me to come back with some drugs. They wanted me to take the risk to bring some drugs back in the jail. You see what I mean? And of course, in my mind, I was like, I just thought about it. I was like, all right, let me think about it. And dude slipped me the number he wanted me to call. But, you know, I was like, rip that number up. As soon as I left out, I'm like, you crazy? I don't want nothing to do. Why would I do that? Anyway. Yeah, man. So I got out of there. But that was, you know, I think you're right, man. I mean, in this situation, we'll see. But I could tell you for sure, I don't know about New York, but I could tell you DC is one of those cities where they will blast you very quick. So.
Sister. All right, fine. How you doing, Chief? How you get down here? You just came in here, what? I saw you yesterday. You went to court. Is that why I saw you in the bullpen yesterday?
Yeah, I tried to kiss you through the bullpen.
Yeah, you tried to get a little too close. That's why I remember your face. You just got glasses on today.
Did you just observe what happened? The tall gentleman who was locked down and he was explaining he was identified as the wrong inmate. And I said, okay, fine, I'll investigate. You tell me who did this on. He says, well, I can't do that. But when they took him out of the cell, he's going up now for a visit. When he said, thanks a lot, Warden, he went to shake my hand. He passes me this little note. This is how it goes down. This is the name of who did the assault. Well, I had to bring HBO down to see you, Bruno, because when we went to the unit yesterday, they didn't see you up there, and they inquired where was the rapper. And I had to explain to them that Bruno got caught up in a little jam over the weekend. Where, why don't you tell them what happened over the weekend?
He beefing on our Ted. Somebody did something to me. I did something back. He said we still go beef. He said we can fight one-on-one. I said, we can fight one-on-one. But when nobody gonna let us fight one-on-one, so came out our cell.
Then what happened?
He got stabbed. I don't know who stabbed him. Somebody stabbed him.
You don't know who stabbed him?
Nah.
But why are you down here?
They said I stabbed him. They said I put a mask on my face and two people popped me out my cell and helped me stab him.
Have you ever been stabbed in jail?
Yeah. Stabbed people and I finally got stabbed.
How much time did you say if you get found guilty you would get?
It changed my time. It would be 115.
115 years. Why 115 years?
Because all my charges add up to 115.
What do you feel about serving 115 years?
I'm serving 115 years. Ain't it going like that?
When you say you're not, if the judge gives you 115, what's your options?
Ain't got no options. Deal with it the best way I can.
So he's 17 years old and he about to serve 115 years. Yeah. He about to serve 115 years. But let me flip over to another part. That's the downside. That's the downside of growing up in that generation. That's a reality. That's just how it is. That's the east side. That's the north side. That's DC for you. And what can you do about it? You can adjust. You can just understand how it is and you can roll with it. But as you can see, this young brother is 17 years old and he's about to go through 125 years. So in the feds, obviously, because we don't have a prison. That's the DC jail right there. So let me go over to something else. This is the good side. I hope they don't flag me, but it's worth the trip. This is my neighborhood band. Band from my side of the city. We love this band, and but it gives you a little taste of how DC music is, right? If you can see this, can y'all see this? Yeah, okay.
To be, yeah. Huh? Y'all say, come on. Yo, hey, my uptown stars, yeah, come on. If I could be like Mike, the whole South Side, what? Now come on. If I could be like Mike, the whole Southwest, yeah, come on. If I could be like Mike, my whole project, come on. If I could be like, wait a minute. Yeah, come on. And your skull in that chopper. It goes waka. Hey, Big C. Hey, in that chopper. Hey, uptown. It's like this. y'all know see, keep it in gangsta. Settle down. Y'all say, y'all know see, y'all say. Say what? Say what? Keep it in gangsta. Say y'all know why. Say what? Keep it in gangsta. Y'all know who. Say what? Keep it in gangsta. Y'all know T. Say what? Keep it in gangsta. Yeah. Y'all know why. Come on, T. Keep it in gangsta. Hey. Come on. Say what? In uptown, we don't play around. My Maryland niggas, the PA niggas, the Southside niggas, like this. I grab this mic, I rock, make girls cry. Hey, hey. Wah, 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 wah.
Are you sick of having issues with your webinars, wasting?
Go-go, you know, just to give y'all a little taste of go-go, it emerges in the 70s by and the godfather go-go is named Chuck Brown. You know, he has his own day in the city. But what makes go-go unique is that it's pretty much the music form in the US that kept the Congo and kept the heavy drumming. You see what I mean? And so it kind of gives you an idea about our music senses there, you know, and the energy we bring to everything we doing, you know, because this is like in the back of our head, pretty much, you see? So
Y'all hear smoke? Shut her down. Shut her down. Stop, smoke. Stop. Everybody stop. Since they thought I was an asshole on the radio Thursday, they thought I was an asshole on the radio Thursday. Now I'm gonna show y'all what I was talking about. Can't no nigga make Stomp Dog and Smoke do what I make them do. Cause that's my family. And that's how I'm going. You can take it how you take it. See me when you see me. See me.
You know, in go-go, the Congos and the Rototons are like the DJ scratching. It's like the scratch. You know, you get a solo chance to do your thing. Like in hip hop, they have the DJ scratching. In go-go, you have the Congo and the Rototon dude doing their solos. And they call that the pocket.
In the streets, nigga. And saddle up, Smoke. When I saddle them up, Smoke. Big day. I said the street full. Let me chill. That ain't fast enough, Smoke. That's too slow. Speed it up. Ah, yeah. Give me double barrel. Double barrel shotgun Smoke. Come on. Give me that. Give me that beat. That beat, Smoke. To free my soul. Wanna get lost in your rock and roll. Bust down. I say, the beat, Smoke. To free my soul. Wanna get lost in your rock and roll. You got Smoke? Oh, Smoke. Hey, Smoke, can you still do my favorite part, Smoke? Hey, Smoke, can you do my favorite part? Put it in the pocket and do my part. Put it in the pocket, Jimmy Jim. Put it in the pocket.
Yeah, the drummer, the main drummer called Jammin' Jeff.
Hold it, Jammin' Jeff.
This Jammin' Jeff coming up right here. That Smoke on the Congo. Jammin' Jeff is right here on the. Yeah. So let me see here. This is the last little Georgia Avenue Day. BYB. Let's see what comes up here. Right, here we go. Boom.
Do your thing, bitch. 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 Hey, dog. Hey, you these bitches ain't funny. She's a dog. It's like now who run it? Now who run it? Who run it?
Now at this time, this is Backyard Band. At Backyard Band, they different from Northeast Groovers because Northeast Groovers is known for the Congo pocket beats they play, but Backyard Band, they really came out with the Rototon. So check it out.
I've been on the road my own. I've been on the battle road. I've been on the work the battle road. With the time to go. The niggas are trying to go. The niggas are trying to go. I'm the one that got the chicken head off in my door. I'm the that singing me. I'm the other fan of me. I'm in this talk of me. I got right on the street. Gotta make a chicken with. They lose faith. Oh, I did it. Do it. This is the way from my hood. You can get from my hood. This is the way from my hood. You can get from my hood. I don't know them niggas. I don't know them. Well, I don't know them. I don't know them. I don't know them. Niggas, I don't know them. I don't know them. I don't know them. I don't know them. Niggas, I don't know them. I don't know them. I don't know them. I don't know them. Niggas, I don't know them. I say, hey, bitch, I think you are the hell. Hey, yo. Hey, why yourself? What?
That's how popular go-go is in DC. I mean, like I was saying, that's our hometown music. New York is known for rap, which is more like a condensed version of the older R&B. Go-go, it never got condensed. You know, it stayed live. And I'm gonna give you another little representation of that real quick. Let me see here. Now, most of you people probably know this song, right? Most of y'all probably know this song. Right? Most of y'all probably know. Look, check this out.
And then you say, there is no cure for this rockness. Woo! Come on! Was that came straight from my cradle. I screamed and hollered and shook my rattle and dreamt of defeated them all in battle. There was no food in my silver spoon, so I grew up hard and I grew up soon. I'm a righteous king, but I'm hungry too, and I eat up chunks.
But where you think they got that beat from? It was actually a go-go song before this one came out by a DC group called Trouble Funk, right? And here it is. Hold on. Let me turn that down. Yeah, and you probably, this song came out before, and you might not even be able to distinguish the difference between the two songs, but they're very similar. So check this out. Yeah, my son's making me a smoothie. Hold on, here we go. Let's see. Here it is. This is the original.
This funky sound, the funk is here, so you can from the east to west. This party please, that party please. I'll funk them all with the greatest of beats. This DJ Rock with the master beat, the boogie and the sound that moves your feet. Somebody say, get up, get up. Somebody say, get up, get up. You party good, you throwing down, you compliment this funky sound. The funk is here, so you can groove. We want to make your body move. And that brother there, his name is Dyke. He's gonna hit you with the rest so you can boogie tonight. I say downtown shopping with some fashion in mind. Just listen here closely while I tell you my line. I'm Slick Dyke, can be very naughty, known by the...
Yo, this ain't Grandmaster Flash and Melly Mel. This is Trouble Funk. They're rapping too. It's just a go-go song, right? So go-go, it had, you know, rap is more like a condensed version of what was going on in that era, and go-go just kind of like stayed on it, and New York kind of capitalized it, you know, condensed it, turned it into a studio thing. You know, they popularized it, but
the name of sport the show. They went checking out the others that dress so mean. They put me in the mind and with Mr. Cardi. But Calvin Klein seems to come through until East Sailor in walks in the GQ. But that's not it. They still want more. So I sent them down to Studio 54. Say George Dashboard, show the C and Sassoons. I've got the teams that make the tune.
Yeah, I don't want to get striked, so I'm gonna stop this bad boy. All right, y'all. I don't see anybody up here in here. Are y'all busy? Are y'all tired of this or what? Let me put this up here in case somebody wants to hop up. I'm gonna stay on here for like maybe just to entertain, just to see if somebody wants to pop up and discuss a little bit of this. Let me see. There's one other thing that I wanted to share that's kind of interesting development that happened. Everybody knows about the march, the Million Man March in DC, right? And I actually was lucky enough to go to the first one. And actually, I need to make sure I'm going to the right one, because I think it's this one right here, 1995. Right.
This next brother, who's trying to come forward us, is a brother who was he would know.
White women 5%. It's about our pain.
You know, I don't want to. I want to find one that's like has the imagery of that original march, and I don't want it to be. Here it is. I think it's this one right here.
New at 5:30, we are taking a look back at a pivotal moment in Black history. October will mark 27 years since demonstrators held the Million Man March. Philip Townsend opens the 13 News Now vault to explain how history is still leaving a major impact today.
This was one of the most beautiful moments in my life. I was sitting in the house, and I was just sitting in the house. Didn't even know anything about it. Had no plans to. I knew a little bit about it. I heard about it, but I didn't have any plans to go there, right? And and then I started watching TV, and they was talking about it, and they was like, yeah, people showing up and blah, 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 all of this stuff. I was like, you know what? Let me get my ass up out of here and head down to the mall. So I actually walked to the mall. I lived about on 17th Street that time, on the southeast side, still the hill, but the hill has north and south. Northeast and southeast is part of the hill. So at that time, I lived on the southeast side of the hill, right? And so I just walked right up the street. It's 17 blocks, but it's summertime, so it was a nice little walk. It's a pleasant walk. DC, the violence in DC. If you don't bother yourself, if you're not involved in it, if you're not involved in drugs, if you're not involved in that, then you almost won't see it. You see what I mean? But when you involve yourself in that stuff, then you easily going to understand what the problem is. So if you ain't involving yourself in it, you can enjoy it. You can enjoy it. But so I took a walk. I took a walk right down to the mall, and it was the most beautiful thing I ever saw.
1995, more than 3 decades after the March on Washington.
People are marching again. This is history being made. Mostly African-American men. Get the t-shirt, black man.
I was just back from New York, actually. I had no plans. I was just kicking back in DC, and I think I was visiting for a week or something like that.
This is the Million Man March.
There to get Black issues back on the minds of lawmakers in the nation. Hundreds of thousands of African-American men converged on the National Mall that day. Organizers of the Million Man March saw it as the perfect publicity campaign to combat negative racial stereotypes.
African Americans are sick and tired of being considered as the dregs of society, the buffoons, the shiftless, the lazy.
The goal also to show unity and self-sufficiency, things that weren't portrayed often for Black men in popular culture. A group left from Hampton Roads early that morning, and we were there to send them off.
Dear Lord, let the world know that all of our men are not incarcerated. Let the world know that all of our men are not white beaters.
And we followed their journey to the nation's capital.
I'm in awe of all the Black men.
Let the world know all our men aren't wife beaters. All our men aren't pedophiles. And all of our men are not scammers. And all our men are not religious hustlers.
Here, and it's true. Not all Black men are in prison. Not all Black men are selling dope. Not all Black men are abandoning their children.
More than 25 years later, our country still grapples with some of the same exact problems. Back then, they called the march a good start.
The demonstrators say what's more crucial than the march is what they do afterwards. That will truly make them one in a million.
For 13 News Now, I'm Philip Townsend.
Now, 2 years after the march, the Million Woman March was held. It was a response to concerns the first march excluded Black women from the nationwide discussion on race. New at 5:30, we are taking a look.
Yeah, Storm, you know what? I'm gonna tell you, as a man, right? I didn't recognize, even when I went down there that day, that it was even excluding women. I didn't recognize it. I didn't hear any, I wasn't really following it because I'm 25 years at that age, at that time, and I'm still I'm entrenched, number one, in music. And, actually, because I was working with a group at that time. So, I was still essentially a young man, still in the mindset of a young man. I was doing music and I was a DJ, and that's what I was entrenched in. But this day I walked down there, and I'm gonna tell you, sister, it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. It wasn't it. Think about this: 1,000,000 men, and there was. If that place was packed like it's never been packed before, and it was empowering as a black man, especially in the 90s, because think about all the violence we grow up with. But that one day, we were all together, and it was not one instance of violence. You know, and the other thing I wanted to say about that is that it was a lot of contributors to organizing that. You know, many, and it wasn't one or two or three or four. It was many. You know, so I hope people realize that it takes many leaders and many organizers to come together, and that no one person could do that. Has that kind of power. That's the power. That's the only power that people possess when they want to get something done. Yeah, it was the Million Man March. And as you heard, the sister said in the end that a Million Woman March came after that. I didn't go to that, obviously, but I hope it was beautiful, and I'm sure it was beautiful, you know. And it's needed. It's needed, you know. Anything that people think is needed and they're willing to work for, I believe you should just go for it and do it, you know, and don't worry about what other people think, because it's not for everybody all the time. My family was proud to watch my father, uncles, cousins depart for the event. Yeah, I'm sure they were. Yeah, you know, in the 90s, there was a lot of pain. And I think and this generation is still experiencing it. That's what I believe. Like this generation is experiencing it. And yeah, hopefully we can all find a way to contribute something to the youth so that the youth have it a little bit easier. Because I know my generation, I'm not trying to complain, but in terms of the violence, the violence was off the hook. And it's really hard. It was really hard to escape it. You don't escape it. I mean, how you escape it is by showing people that you can commit violence. You know, that's almost the easiest way to keep people from jumping at you. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was sad. That was a sad moment. I mean, a crazy moment. I can't even recollect my own mind state, to be honest, because it's one where you try to cover up. You try to, you know, maybe you're going to drink or smoke, or, you know, try to forget the things that you have to face, to try to get over the fact that it only takes one little conflict for your life to end, or for somebody else's life to end. And that's no way to grow up, to be honest. I mean, yeah, there's no way to grow up. Yeah, you remember the Million Man March. Woo! The Million Man March was so beautiful. It was beautiful. And from what I hear, they haven't been able to accomplish it again. But you know, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. I feel like the violence, drug, alcohol abuses is worse these days among you. Yeah, because they just straight going to look at how many more options they have. I mean, in my generation, there was only a couple options. You have weed, you have alcohol, and you had what? I mean, and for the, you know, the people that really wanted to get really deep, then they had PCP, angel dust, or whatever you want to call it, Love Boat, the DC, that's what they call it, and cocaine and heroin. But that was it. Today they have like loads more, and you know, some of this shit is just flat out made in the lab. You know, it's just experimenting and covering up your pains has just become such a regular part of society these days. The opioid epidemic is real. It's real. And it started generations ago, really. The heroin epidemic, you know what I'm saying? But nobody wanted to do anything about that. Then the crack epidemic, nobody wanted to do anything about that. And now it's the opioid epidemic, and it's okay to talk about it. And People could get plenty of help, you know. I'm pushing 50, and yes, weed was the big thing back then. Yeah, exactly. I mean, actually, to be honest with you, 15 to 16, I wasn't smoking no weed. No. That was maybe when I was into, 19, yeah, 20, yeah. Then it's like, but and that was like cigarettes, to be honest. I didn't smoke cigarettes, so that was like cigarettes, and then we would have some beer, some coolers, wine coolers, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, and that was it. But that was enough, you know what I mean? That was enough. And none of that other shit, that was like considered whack. My peeps, we didn't, come on now. We grew up watching people use that shit, and destroying themselves. So yeah, they're constantly coming out with legalized drugs. Absolutely. I mean, all I could say is yes. It looks to me like young kids are into it even more than my generation was, even more. But can you blame them? Because my belief is that it all starts with something emotional, something you want to cover up. I think that largely feeds, addiction, drug addiction, and people trying to kill pain somehow or forget something. And it's an easy way to forget your pains for a second, but they don't go away. They just get prolonged. Dong storm, yeah, dang storm, yeah. Yeah. But on that note, folks, I just wanted to test out the system really, and I thought, you know what, playing some stuff from DC and going over a little bit, it would give me a chance to test out that system. So now, as you can see, like a lot of people, I have this little support the positive and the fair media at the bottom. The layout is a little different. Yeah, I checked into some things. I found out I can have a little background up there. And, yeah. And you know what else I found out? Check this out. I found out I could have some background music. Yes. And here's some of my background music. Oh, Andrea, how you doing? Come on in.
Doing what? I'm in. I had to actually look up the definition of go-go and what it meant, because what I remember of go-go is what I remember watching, like, I don't know if you remember the show Laughing.
Mm-hmm. Right. I know what you
mean. And
mean.
they had the go-go dancers on there. So that's the only thing I related to that. I'm like, what? So when I looked it up, it says that it was talking about, because, they kept the music going and going to get people out there on the dance floor. I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Right.
But I'm like, when you would say go-go, I'm like, I would flash to go-go dancers. I wouldn't flash to the music because I wasn't aware of that's what that meant. So
right.
It's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah. And the thing is like growing up in the 90s, I mean, I'm a 70s kid. I was born in the 70s, but my teenage years are the 90s, right? The mid 80s and mid 90s. I'm going through becoming a man at those points, but in DC. So that's when, I can go out to, DJing. Obviously, I'm going to be 18. Actually, I was DJing in the club before I was even allowed to be in the club legally, to be honest, and that was like in DC, that wasn't even a big deal. That shows you how strange, how different that time period was. But yeah, so I could drink some wine, a glass of wine, or some beer, or some Jägermeister, or something like that at 19. You know what I mean? When I'm DJing. So, and then maybe somebody will come by and they might have some weed or something like that. But the thing about it is that when you couple that with go-go music, that's the music we're listening to. I mean, when I was DJing, I wasn't playing go-go music. I would play some of it, sometimes the classics, but my generation, this is the type they're playing.
I don't see no suckers in sight. Oh yeah.
Yeah, see, I wasn't aware of any of that music.
Right.
The Bud, I think they said the song "The Bud." Is that what the one doing the Bud or something like that song?
Doing, yep.
Yeah, now I remember that one.
Exactly.
But
Doing the butt. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
exactly. And
Yeah.
when you go to the live go-go, when you listen to go-go live, obviously they have the records and stuff, but when you go to the go-go live, it's live arrangements. So
Mm-hmm.
and after a while, those beats, they get in your head, and the energy of it really gets in your head. It's like nothing like it. And so the combination of liquor and go-go music, people are really getting hyped up on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's really like they're just losing their minds almost in that moment. And when you combine those things, and then you combine the element of maybe violence or gangs, it's just like it becomes something. It's almost like a Molotov cocktail.
Mm-hmm.
And these drums, they do something to you because it's hypnotizing you.
Yeah.
It's like a live open arrangement. So you get really deep into the flow of the music and the drumming and things like that. And so that period is it was interesting for me. But I when I look back on it, I love it. But the violent part, I wish we didn't have to go through that. But everything else was wonderful. But the violence in the 90s in DC is just really ridiculous. It's just crazy, and people talk about it in some way like it's a badge of honor,
Mm-hmm.
to go through that. But no, it's not. It's terrible. The city, you see what happened to our community, right?
Yeah.
You see, I mean, we're worse off for it now, and so it was a tragedy. I mean, it's almost like a genocide.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like a genocide, growing up in a genocide, except we don't call it a genocide.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's just a lot of stuff that happened because I remember even with the Million Man March, how they would try to, the media would try to downplay the numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we just had to, and then on that note, you just had to take the cue from the leaders who were there, the people who were there, like, no, there was 1 million of us there because
I was there.
we kept listening to the media.
I was
it
there.
wasn't 1 million, man. It was just,
I'm going to tell you, there was more people that day than there has ever been down in that place. Like literally that, and because I went there, I saw it, and it was incredible. It was incredible. It was incredible. And I mean, you see the pictures. They show you the pictures all the time. The pictures don't lie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The pictures don't lie. And not to diminish anything else, but that was really a moment where I guess the Black community was going through a lot of stress. And so they realized, we need something. We have to have some kind of call for peace. And I could tell you, if that didn't happen, I wouldn't know what it's like to see so many Black people together and not have like some kind of contention. You know what I mean? Because when you grow up, you have to have a little bit of bravado on a normal day of the week. You see what I mean? In that city, unfortunately, in that generation, I mean, you're walking thinking, so, you don't know what conflict is going to be where somebody can come by shooting or somebody, just because of a misunderstanding, you could lose your life. That's how it was. And then to juxtapose that with now the Million Man March is happening. Let's all go down there. Let's all of the ones with all this contention for each other, let's all meet. But I went down there. I was like, okay, let's see what this is about. And I went down there, and it was the most beautiful experience I ever had in my life. Ever. I would never, ever, in any other time point in my life, have I ever seen so many Black people in one place.
Right.
Since then, you know what I mean?
And Black men to boot. with them constantly trying to incarcerate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a good moment for Black men, and I think the Black community. But I think it could be as though you don't ever have one. You only have one experience like that in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly enough, but I remember it. And so nobody should tell you that's not a special day. No, that was a really special day.
I know it was. I mean, for them trying to, like I said, if you watch the news, they would try to downplay all that, right? Of course, anything of that kind of magnitude, they would try to downplay. That's the news. I always felt like they've always tried to make what we do. They always try to downplay what we try to do and what we do as a community.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't, and same thing with all the, stuff, medical and all that kind of stuff to make us seem like we're just, the wretched of the earth. They try to make us feel that way. So I've always felt, they downplay our accomplishments and stuff and things, because it was peaceful. It wasn't like the Capitol, the January 6th, invasion of the Capitol. It wasn't any of that kind of stuff like that, right?
Sister, there wasn't one incident.
Yeah.
Not one incident. And actually, everybody was like, these are the Black men you're going to see on the street any other day of the week. But this day, everybody was clear what it was about. You see what I mean? Like the message transcended everybody. So there was the same guy, let's say the same guy who you call a junkie was down there. The same guy that might have sold some dope last night was down there. The same guy that might be a police officer, he was there too. Took a day off, might be down there too, right? The teacher, it was just all parts of the society, young and old men, Black men that were there, and all behaving. Now, I don't want to say behaving, but all exhibiting their best.
Mm-hmm.
Each other. So it was, it was like something very powerful, and I just loved the fact that I was able to just, not really think about it, but just wake up one day and say, you know what, I'm going to walk down there and see what's up. I didn't have to get on a bus. That's the beautiful thing about being there. You didn't have to. Whenever they having these marches down there, it's good or bad. If you want to go, you got to do is go out your house and walk down there and see.
Yeah.
And the only other crazy experience I would say that matched up to this one, it's the opposite side of the spectrum. It's the first time I was a teenager when this happened. I forget what year, but it was the first time the Ku Klux Klan in my lifetime got permission to march in DC. The first time. And they tried to march over to Capitol Hill towards the other side. There's Capitol Hill where it's the mall. They don't call that Capitol Hill, they call that the mall. But the east side is the residential side, right? Of the Capitol. And they call that Capitol Hill. It's at the top of the hill, right? And they tried to march over there. And do you know, we were all out there. We were all out there. I was out there. My friends was out there. Everybody started throwing bottles at them, attacking them like straight out East Capitol Street, and they had to stop the whole thing. They got violently attacked.
Yeah, wrong side of the street.
Everybody attacked them. From different backgrounds, the white people, the Black people, everybody. The police didn't. Even the police were like, "Uh-oh." The police, yeah, because a big percentage of the police force is just Black in DC. They had that law where that was the one thing Mayor Barry did. That was out of many things. He passed that law where it's like, I think a 30% had to be from the city, had to grow up there, already be residents. They didn't put people in to be cops, So I forget what percentage it had to be, but it was that was the opposite side of the spectrum. But that was beautiful to see people exerting violence against the Ku Klux Klan trying to march there.
Yeah.
This
is just crazy.
So yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to grow up there, and it's a blessing. So it's a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a blessing. But I hope I just hope my kids. The one wish I have for my kids is just not to grow up with so much violence. You know,
Right.
it's a trick. It's a trick. It's a double-edged sword. I mean, you can think you can defend yourself by exhibiting violence, but then you walk away with it in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean? And it kills you from inside.
Yeah.
You know, so it's yeah. So
Yeah. We were military brats, so we lived on. I think up until I was in the 5th grade, we lived on a military base, so it's kind of different there than on the outside. So
hmm
a lot of stuff, and then we were the first Black people to move into the area that we moved into. So we got some heat from some of the white people there, but overall we didn't. They didn't bother us that much. So yeah.
right.
But as
Yeah.
I got older, I didn't appreciate, I didn't like that part of town. So I found myself,
hmm
going where Black people were, because I'm like, I got sick of that, not seeing our people. And
hmm
so I would find a way to make my way to the other side of town.
hmm
Yeah. So
hmm hmm
yeah,
Where
watching
your
Belmont.
people?
Hmm?
Where
Yeah,
your people?
exactly. Belmont Heights was, baseball was big then.
hmm
And so I don't remember, if you remember Dwight Gooden, and I think he played for the New York, either the Mets or the Giants, I don't remember, but he was from the area. And so I go on that side of town to go watch some baseball, whatever. I just had to get up out of there. Just, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I grew up, and when I was growing up, it was basically in my part of town. I mean, which is a big part of town. I mean, I'm not talking about just my neighborhood, but the east
Hmm.
side, basically, it was, and not even just the east side, just northwest too, northwest, northeast, southeast. It was like in the '90s, it's just lawlessness. I hate to call it that way. Beautiful people, wonderful people, fair people, but in terms of the other stuff, lawlessness, straight
Hmm.
up lawlessness, like just it's just sad. A lot of drugs being sold everywhere, and a lot of people coming to the city to buy drugs, and you know, and you know, as you heard one of these guys in the chat the other day talking about the shower posse coming in. I don't like to talk about those kind of things, myself. But yeah, they did come down there, and it's like you heard my friend tell him, like, yeah, they got paid money. The DC guys just get you could get a quarter of a key or whatever just if you shoot one.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. And it's terrible to know that that's how things were. That's how
Hmm.
things were. And I hate hearing guys try to glorify it. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? Like I really don't like that because nobody that's really been through, most of the people that been through it, they tell you right now, don't do it.
Yeah.
Stop. Don't do it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
don't follow in those footsteps. Don't even try to emulate it because why would you? It's nothing to brag about.
Yeah.
Don, how you doing, bro?
What's
You
up,
there?
baby?
Hey, yeah, man, you're here, huh? Good to see you, man.
Hey, Donnie.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah, it's morning in the US. It's Texas. What time is it in Texas?
8:27.
Oh, yeah, okay. It's top of the morning for you. How you
Yeah.
doing, bro?
Oh man, I'm good. Just got off work and just doing my normal little things I do.
Okay. Yeah. I got you. What you got the night shift or something?
Yep. Right now,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, I got you. Yeah. So it seems like it's a lot of light over there.
Yeah, man. Because we've been going through these crazy extreme heat. I think it got up pretty high, like 107 or You know, I got in my truck today and it like read on the display, it was like 117. So yeah, it's kind of crazy out here in Texas right now.
Yeah, crazy hot. Thank God I'm not there, man. But it was a monsoon here, but the heat there, I can only imagine. I can only imagine.
Ain't
But
it? Don't it be cold up there where you're at?
no, man. No, man. Denmark is very flat and it's like sea level. So that whatever happens goes right over the country very fast, right? And so nothing collects here. It doesn't stop here. You know, the weather collects. It gets probably a little bit colder, maybe in Sweden, maybe Norway, but here in Denmark, it's like it doesn't get as hot and it doesn't get as cold as like DC. DC, the East Coast gets frigid cold in the wintertime, you know, polar ice cold in the wintertime, and then, you know, swamp heat and sweaty in the summertime, you know. But here it doesn't reach those extremes, you know. It's you know, yeah, but it does get dark and rainy. And then in the summer, right now, it gets really bright for long periods of time. Like you wake up about 4 in the morning, it's going to start getting bright. And then it gets dark around 10:30, 11, you know, at night. And I suppose it's not like that where in Texas.
No.
Right. Yeah.
Have you? I'm not trying to change the conversation too much.
No.
It seemed like y'all was doing good.
No, we just rambling. We going, you know, anything is good, brother.
Have you ever seen that? Just a little side bar, but did you ever see that movie? Or you, Andrea? The Book of Negroes.
Nope. I would like to see it. Sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I forget who plays in it, but it's about you know, the war with Great Britain when they got their independence and stuff like that, and then it was like the black folks that wanted to stay, or they wanted to repatriate somewhere else. Some went, you know, to X, Y, and Z and stuff like that. It's kind of a love story at the end of the day, but you know, just some of that, and some of them went to the area that you're in, and when they got there, it was just like it was cold. It was just a rough environment for them, and yeah, I think about that all the time when you say Denmark, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Denmark, Copenhagen, man. It's between Germany and Sweden.
Yeah.
It's between Germany and Sweden, yeah. And it's you know, the black population here, it's hard to estimate, my brother, because one of the things that they haven't done, it's not like the US. The US has a census and they do statistics on black, white, Latino, these kind of overarching ethnic groups, right? They do that. And that's what the UN asked them to do. And they do it. The US is one of the first countries to do it. But Denmark and a lot of countries in Europe still haven't done that. So the statistics are kind of sketchy on the black population. But you know, we did some data, to be honest with you. I mean, my organization, the organization I founded, Afro Empowerment Center, is the first organization to do statistics on the black population in Denmark. And
yeah, this is not to cut you, but this is it.
No, there you go.
Yeah,
okay.
I recommend it if you guys haven't seen it. It's got a couple of DVDs in there, but it's real good.
Okay.
But anyway.
No, that's good. So we did some data and we went through the population that we could find, and what we did was, sorry, I'm just trying to find it at the same time. And what we did was we went into the Danish statistics, right? And then we counted up they do statistics on nationality, right? So, but as you know, black people in the West, you can't derive anything about the black population from the West if you do a nationality, right? You can derive something if you're talking about sub-Saharan African countries. You could derive that they're black. You see what I mean?
Mhm.
But you can't really do it with every country. But we went through all the countries where South America, Central America, the Caribbean islands, certain countries where the population, they're largely black, 80%, 90% black, right? And we couldn't use the U.S. Like people like me, we couldn't use any of that data. People from the European countries, we couldn't use any of them. So we don't have any data on black people from Western countries, but we could use certain other countries, right? Like Haiti, for example, right? The people, the population of Haitians that migrated to Denmark, and sub-Saharan Africans, and a few others, right? According to how they define their own populations, right? Now, and we put that together, and in 2016, I'm sorry, when we did that, 2016, 17, we came up with, it was something like 50,000 black people living in Denmark, but we also had to give a margin of error because we knew there were plenty more. We said it could be double, it could be 25% more than that, than 50,000, not double, but 25% more. I got to look at the report, but the report is still out there. I'm gonna see if I can find it real quick, but it was revealing in any case, just to know that. And so that most of that population lives in the Copenhagen region, by the way.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So but
one of the other things that I was thinking about when you were showing that, I guess those folks were talking about, how they came up in DC and stuff like that. To me, it just seems like black folks just did way better. They had a sense of entrepreneurship, family, and just kind of building themselves up. And honestly, they did good because people took on trades, had their own businesses. It kind of reminds me of Black Wall Street in Oklahoma. And sometimes I just wonder, we got all these pockets now, and this person's doing good, and Andrea's over there, she's having it her way. You over there, you might be having it your way, I might be having it my way, but it just seems like I know the times are different, and I consider that, but it just seems like black folks just did way better.
But they were segregated too, though, right? For the most part, which is a whole nother experience, right? Because I didn't grow up in a segregated community, so.
Do you think that helped it?
It seems like that's what separated us from then to now. I mean, they were their own community, and they had to depend on each other to help, make it during those times. And and unfortunately, even though as they would constantly tell us, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, even though we were doing that, they still bombed our the cities we lived in, and then they gentrified, like V. Bennett was talking about the community. Hey, something must be there, so let's move them out, or they do eminent domain or anything to break up that community, right? Or bring drugs into the community and stuff like that. So I think there's a whole lot to be said for all of that, right? Even when we were doing good, I remember the lady who said something about, the lady who had Emmett Till murdered. She was like, well, I was jealous because, the little black girl had on a better dress than me, right? So they knew what we were doing, how we were living. And all that hatred and jealousy and all this stuff caused a lot of this, a lot of the communities that we lived in. Even, if you go out there and look at Seneca Village up in New York, that's now Central Park. That was black people. Black people lived there, right? And it's this constant trying to figure out a way, this eminent domain. I was watching a video the other day where, can't remember where it's at. There's a community, there's some black people that own a lot of land, right? Now they're trying to bring a railroad through there, eminent domain, trying to take land from our people. I mean, it's this constant, it's this
Yeah,
you know, this constant taking away of what.
Was that those Geechee folks in Florida?
I'm not sure. Like I said, I don't remember exactly where it was, but it's just this constant trying to take away what we have, you know. And so, I mean, you know, we do when we do good, they don't like that either. When they, you know, when we pulled ourselves up by our own bootstraps, they don't like that either. It's always setting another bar of, now this is what's required, or we're going to do this. We're going to. Even the people who had their land taken away from them in California because they wanted a little piece of the beach area for Black people to go to, eminent domain, and that land sat dormant for years. Years. They did nothing with that land. They just didn't want Black people on the beach. And so, you know, then they came out and said, okay, now after all these years have gone by, now we owe these people this money. Well, $75 million is not enough when you can think about all the generational wealth that was taken away during that time. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that even comes close to what they owe those people from taking that land from them. So, I mean, it's just constant, you know, it's a constant taking away of what we built up over the generations, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. It's just, I mean, you know, we've been through a lot, but it is so vital to review it. Sometimes, you know, we can get so caught up in like what we're experiencing right now at the moment that that it seems like we forget who we are. And just going back and reviewing, look at how everybody talked, you know, the last generation, how these people were talking. They were so proud of the way they talked.
Confident.
They were confident. They loved each other. They seemed like they had a lot of respect, and they talk about the community in a complete different way my generation talks about it.
Yeah.
You know, they seem like they were visionaries, like there was hope. This generation, you know, I mean, I'm not saying not everyone, but it just seems like as a group, we don't exhibit it.
Right, and I agree. And one thing, you know, just an observation too. I think that, you know, they were all under the same. What is it? I'm having a loss of words right now.
It's early, brother.
Yeah, especially for me. Excuse me, but I'm gonna say, what is that when you constantly putting somebody down and stuff like that? Not depression. Man, help me out, somebody.
Constantly putting somebody down.
Suppression, oppression.
Yeah, oppression. Thank you.
Oppression
is what, oppression. What I was looking for. So, you know, we were all under that. I mean, that'll bring people together. You know what I'm saying? Too.
True.
Fighting for the same things.
That's true.
You know, I don't think. I'm sorry. I don't think that's changed because everything's still the same. It's just a different time. But you know, just an observation. But thanks for helping me out with that word.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's kind of like, even though things really changed, right? You know, have they changed? Not really. No. And but yet one thing we know for sure has changed: segregation. It's still there.
You know, all the other elements seem like they're pretty much there, but it's just the laws have changed. You know, I mean, I'm not trying to put down the law, you know, the fact that we do need laws, and there has been some kind of progress, but the community, I mean, it's hard to argue if the Black community has experienced progress. It's hard to argue it.
Yeah. How would you measure it? Yeah.
How would you measure it? It is exactly, you know, and it's and when we go back and listen to how these people were talking about each other, how do you measure it? It seemed like they didn't measure it by money. Like they said that clearly. It wasn't about, you know, they weren't rich, but they were together. They cared for each other. They all took care of each other. Now we're rich, though. Now we're rich.
Yeah.
You know, We're rich.
Yeah. Yeah. But I still think it's because, we still lived in those segregated areas. I mean, I still think that had a lot to do with it. There wasn't, much interference until, unless and until the communities got so much better, like Tulsa and other places like that. But I still think it has a lot to do with the segregation. I mean, I grew up in a segregation was over by the time I got old enough. So don't know anything about that. But I remember going and my grandmother lived and grandparents lived in Miami, and I remember going there, and the community was a little bit different. You knew some people, but it wasn't still like all of this. Everybody, I'm sure they knew everybody. We went there on occasion, during the summertime. So they all knew each other down there, but we still were kind of stay around grandma's house, don't go too far. It wasn't this whole community thing like it was before, where the community watched you and you get whooped by that person and come back and get whooped by. It wasn't that. My grandmother was, what she said, she didn't care if she told you not to go outside, she meant that. And she didn't care if your uncle came home or your cousin came to the house and said, let's go outside. She said, don't go outside. And if you did that, you got your butt whooped just because I don't care who it is. I don't care who comes over here. When I tell you don't go out, I mean don't go out. So that's what the memories I have of being around the neighborhood they lived in. And it was a tough neighborhood down there too. So we didn't get a chance to just go out there and just be outside like that, right? Because of the violence that was in the neighborhood at the time. So, and that's 60s, 70s, So I was born in 1961. So that's the 60s and 70s going down there and seeing grandma, So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they had boundaries. In other words.
Yeah. And you just had to do it because they, like I said, they knew, we were the out of towners, right? So we went maybe once or twice a year to go visit down in Miami, right? And so that's how we just had to do what they said because they knew better, right? They knew better than us because we didn't live there. So, but anyway, I think, like I said, I think it's all, they still try to segregate the communities today to some extent. They still try to practice some of that, right? And then those of us who managed to get out, we've gotten out, but I mean, still to that degree,
Is there a way? Hey, Shaka, how do I put in it's no way I could put in a like a PDF link or a PDF into this chat? It doesn't do that, does it? Either one of you all know about that, Donnie or Andrea?
No, definitely not me.
Okay, I need to put a download link to these things because I just was in my drive looking at the data that we took for Donnie. You was asking me about it, and also the first survey that we took of the population, right? And we're pretty proud of that survey because we're the first to actually do one. The second group is the EU that actually did one like 6 months, something like that after us. It was produced maybe like a year later, something like that. And the findings were the same, verbatim the same. Not in the chat. Yeah, so I want to find those for you all if you want. Yeah, I'm going to find them for you just so you can have them and you have a chance to know a little bit about the population here because it pretty much still stands until another survey, right? But on that note, I just want to say thank you to you all, everybody that came out again, especially you all, Andrea and Donnie, for coming up on the panel. I just wanted to go through a little bit of just share a little bit about DC, and I didn't really have much else to do, but that's a big story, DC. So I couldn't do in 1 second, in 4 hours or 2 hours. It's a lot of stuff in between there, like the riots, and that's like the 40s, 50s, 60s, That's
it was definitely interesting for sure. It was.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And the main thing one of the things I think is important to exhibit is just that, listen, I'm a 53-year-old man and I come from a city, but what's the point of being proud of where you come from if you don't know a little bit about it?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? let's know something about our population. Let's know something about the cities we come from and the people we come from, you know? And it's so important because it empowers us. It empowers us to deal with others,
Yeah.
you know, to deal with each other, you know? So if maybe you got, I don't know when you come in, but in the beginning, I shared some statistical data on the Black population in DC from 1820 to 1880. Did you know they had that?
No.
Check it out.
On the
Check that.
census.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what, yep, exactly. And I'm pretty sure they're talking about Georgetown because that's where the Black community was largely.
Yeah. Now that I never knew.
Yeah, I brought it up on the screen. I shared it. So yeah. So if you review maybe like the first 20 minutes, it should be there.
Now is that the Georgetown where Allen Iverson went to school?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, man. Oh, and that's the other beautiful thing. I mean, come on, the Hoyas used to crush on college.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
And
love the Hoyas. Hey, you know I met Ewing. You know I met him.
He went there, didn't he?
Yeah, he went there.
Yeah.
I met him. I was going to the movies. Me and my buddy were going to the movies in Georgetown at this little theater. We used to like to go to this theater over there because they had a lot of nice movies and it would always be empty. Right. And I mean, to be honest, we were hook school. They didn't care. They didn't care, you know. So we would go over to the movie theater over there, right? And but it was a nice movie theater, and he was in there one day, man. And this dude was so tall. I mean, I wasn't when I was in high school, I was a foot shorter than I am now. I was like 5 foot at that time, right? I grew a foot after high school or in high school, pretty much. But at that time, it was almost like he was almost like double my height. It seemed like it anyway, you know. I knew he wasn't, but it seemed like that. But yeah, man, he was. I remember that. That was one of the highlights of. Yeah. Anyway, but bless you all. We'll catch up. I don't know. I'm headed. I got work this whole week, so I'm pretty sure Shaka's going to be picking up on his streams now.
Okay.
So what's up, Shaka? We'll see you down there, man. Not in the chat, but you can share the link. Yeah. I'll share it next time. Okay, peace out, everybody. Blessings to you. I hope everybody has a great day.
Peace, y'all.
You too.
Okay. Blessings. One.